All right. Dylan Cease. Dylan Cease, the pitcher that the Mets could bring in and add to the front of the rotation. Plus, we get MLB's top 100 rankings. Dan and I are going to break that down and much more next on Metcast. What up, Met fans? As always, I am Ray. That is Dan to my left, and we got some articles that just came out. Dan and I are going to get to shortly. We've been screaming about it. It was Michael King. That was the rumor for the longest time, but then we get that bomb today that the New York Mets are in talks with the Padres in regard to Dylan Cease, and that is probably their preferred pitcher. Dan, give me your thoughts. What's going on?
Excited. Ray, happy to be back on one of these lives with you. It's always a good time. Listen, the mentality that we had, we thought the Mets weren't going to be in on other starters. And then you hear stuff about Cease and King, and the Mets are all over it, and San Diego's trying to get rid of them. We'll talk about who's the better option, but they're both good pitchers. So I'm excited. Yeah. Happy to be back.
I couldn't agree more. So let's get right to the article. We're going to take a little bit of a deep dive into it. We got several videos for us to watch. It's been a minute since Dan's been on here. We were on last night, but we didn't go in depth. It was more of a chill thing. But MLB rumors, Dylan Cease trade discussed by Padres, Mets, and Cubs. Here, let's get into it really quick. The San Diego Padres and New York Mets have reportedly discussed a trade involving starting pitcher Dylan Cease. According to John Heyman of the New York Post, John, who's always balls on, let's be real.
Shout out, John.
The Mets have been trying to acquire Cease from the Padres. The Chicago Cubs are also involved, but there is a belief San Diego prefers New York's package instead. Cease and the Padres avoided arbitration, agreeing to a one-year $13.75 million contract for 2025 this season on January 9th. So that obviously happened recently. He's 29 years old. We already know that. In his final year of arbitration, which means that he will be a UFA at the end of this year. Cease has seemingly been on trade talks throughout the offseason, with MLB.com's Mark Feinstein reporting that he was among the starting pitchers potentially available for trade on December 9th. We heard that from several sources. It turns out that it's right. Some of the people that we've had on the show brought up his name. For some reason, the Padres are more than willing to move him, regardless if they got Sasaki or not. It was probably more inevitable if they got Sasaki, but it seems that hasn't changed anything. The Mets and Cubs aren't the only teams vying for Cease, though John Morosi of MLB Network previously reported that the Boston Red Sox were also interested in the right-hander. Maybe that's not as steep because they were able to trade for Garrett. Heyman noted on Thursday that the Padres might be enticed by New York's prospects list, which includes pitcher Brandon Sproat. I'll give you my opinions afterwards. I'm not going to jump the gun here. Jet Williams and infielder Luis Angel Acuna. Sproat and Williams ranked 46 and 58 in MLB.com's top 100 prospect rankings relatively. That's enough. I think we get the gist there, Dan. I'll say this. If we trade Brandon Sproat for a rental, I will be out of my ever-loving mind. That's just me. I want Cease here. And I don't think Jet Williams, it shouldn't take a top 50 prospect. We saw some content lists come out. Jet Williams, anywhere between 40 and 50 overall in Major League Baseball. It shouldn't take a top 50 prospect to pry a guy like Cease away. He's a very good pitcher, mid-3 ERA type guy. Would be a very solid number 2. Him, Minaya, and Senga. Dan, what are your thoughts on everything that I just went over?
Listen, I like Cease. They would be more inclined on San Diego's side to give him to the Mets because they want to shed payroll and he's 13 and a quarter. That's what he's due. And then the whole thing with King, he was up at 8.8 and the Padres were down at 7.3. So he's projected to make 7.9, but you never know. So they're more inclined to get rid of Cease out of the two of them. But I like Cease, but I like King more. Cease in the playoffs is not very good. 2021, even in 2024. I mean, he has a 16 ERA in the playoffs. He has a lot of innings on that arm, 800 innings in 6 years versus only 450. He has 850. King only has 450. So it's like it's a big difference.
Mhm.
So they're both great pitchers. I like King more. I understand you like Cease. They're
I
both
like
good
King
pitchers.
more too. I said that
Right.
yesterday.
But Cease would be great, though. Don't get me wrong. It's just you're going to have to trade someone like an Acuna or something like that. Or maybe you have to package something like we heard Zack Scott say this week. It was Budo, Gilbert, Tidwell. I mean, that's a lot, especially if you don't want to give up pitching prospects.
Yeah, we can get to that really quickly. I believe Scott, and I have that look right on cue, always ready at the
Thank you,
whip.
Ray.
Let's bring this up really quick. Zack Scott potentially, not potentially, but he did. He walked this back today because he caught a lot of flack for what he said. But he said, here's my general thinking, the acquisition cost of King, which would probably be similar to Cease. I could see it taking one of Buto, McGill, one of Gilbert or Clifford, and one prospect ranking 10 to 15. I think that's absurd. That is, in my opinion, that is an equivalent trade package to what the Yankees gave up last year for Soto. Ryan Gilbert is right on the cusp of being a top 100 prospect. Gilbert is a top 100 prospect according to MLB.com. And then Budo, who's a top tier reliever. Yeah, he's a reliever, but you're talking two top 100 prospects for a guy who's going to be UFA at the end of this year. I think maybe, people are joking. That's why Scott's currently unemployed because he wouldn't do that. I don't see David Stearns giving up that crazy of a haul. And I saw an article earlier today talking about the Mets and what they would potentially have to give up. And they were talking about one prospect between 10 and 15 and a major league piece. Maybe swap out a bad contract, pay down another contract. Maybe, I don't know. They're looking to move Arias. Maybe they move off Arias. You trade them McNeil, pay down some of that money and a prospect. Or maybe you give a Gilbert up. But you're talking Zack Scott here giving up. Clifford and Gilbert, to me, are both very high-end prospects. So they're both top 100 guys, in my opinion. And I'm trying not to come at it as biased, but we did our prospect rankings not too long ago. And to think that Gilbert, I don't know if I'm doing that. Dan, what are you doing? What would be your trade package in your head? You don't have to give me the exact players, but rankings-wise, are you willing to give off the current major league club? Because I am. And I know a lot of people love Luis Angel Acuna. I like him, but I don't project his hit tool as well as everybody thinks.
Right.
We can get more into that.
I like the idea of Tidwell having some value in these trades. Of course, Beatty's always a name you want to throw out there. If McNeil, you can pay down half of his contract, I think there's always a possibility for him to be thrown into these trades. Marte is always an option. On the prospect side, Clifford, you wouldn't trade, I would think, for a 1-year rental, at least for the moment, let's just say. Both of these guys could be. I think Clifford you hold for a guy like Vlad. If you're trading for a first baseman, yeah, Clifford can definitely go in that deal. I just don't feel comfortable giving up the pitching. And I don't think David Stearns, honestly, is either. He preaches the pitching all the time. We need pitching. Sproat, I'm happy that he's not throwing him in these trades. But Tidwell, I could see having value, but you have to promise me guys like Jonah Tong are definitely going to keep ascending and guys like that.
Yes.
So I don't know, banking on Christian Scott next year, it's tough. They have the prospects to do it, but if the Cubs want to pull the trigger on a guy like Matt Shaw, for example, they would definitely have more capital to trade. But I don't know, a package like that would probably be my guess.
Well, let me ask you this, and I would hang up the phone. If they were to do a straight up 1-for-1 swap, would you give up Sproat for either one of King or Cease?
No, absolutely not.
I agree. I mean, they're 1-year rentals at the end of the day. I will say this. The Padres are smart to trade them now, but because think about this. They have a good roster right now, Dan. So come trade deadline, are you trading off that good roster, that good rotation?
Well, we know now the Padres, the only two players they're not going to talk about trades with are Machado and Tatis. There was a bunch of people in the spaces and stuff. Shout out the spaces as too is on Twitter. But yeah, you always talk about Tatis. Oh, he could be in this lineup, but then you think about him in this clubhouse and that contract. So I'm happy the Padres are saying, no, we're not going to trade for those kind of caliber of guys. But Cease makes sense. He does. Do the Mets need a starter, though, Ray? I think that's a good question we should ask ourselves. Are we okay with this rotation? Are we okay with Kodai Senga? Happy birthday to him in the rotation as the ace.
I agree, and I've been saying that for a while that I'm not. Guys, let us know. I just put out a poll. 1 like equals 1 get me Dylan Cease. And guys, if you're enjoying this content, we ask you to like and subscribe. If you want to support the channel, give us a follow over on YouTube, the best way to support us. And we'll get to some of these comments really quick. Let me know what trade package you'd be willing to give up. We'll get to some of those live here on air as we're breaking this down. We have several other things we're going to be getting to. We've been preparing for the show for a little bit. Got this from Charles. Dan is the man. Got Scott. Cease is the guy to get a legit ace. This is the type of move Mets need to make. Listen, I've been calling for Castillo from the Mariners for forever. And I said Michael King, a month ago? Mm-hmm. And now it's coming to fruition. Hopefully. We got this from Al. Get Vladdy now. I will say this, and I said it yesterday, Dan. Let's go in the fairy tale land. I need to get some music where I can hit it. It's like, right? Fairy
Get a soundboard of your own. Yeah.
The end of the season, everybody's screaming at David Stearns. But if I were to tell you at the end of the season, fairy tale land, the New York Mets would not only bring back Sean Manaea, they would get Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Juan Soto, and potentially Dylan Cease or Michael King, and all you're doing is losing Severino. Think about that.
Mm-hmm. It's a much better rotation. It is. I hear you on that.
Rotation lineup?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we got this from Richard. You should have added get King to your poll. Yeah, I could have. You're right. What's up, Zach? What's going on, my guy? Dan, coming to you from the chiropractor's office. Let's get some Mets gear up in the background. Go. Dan Bartels.
Rest up. That's funny.
Preach, Danny boy. Richard again. We have enough prospects to trade a couple of them away and want quantity. You need, I totally agree. I've been saying that. We have the Beatties, the Mauricios, the Jet Williams, the Drew Gilberts, the Acuñas. That's 5 guys right there. And if we're honest, if our team's healthy, none of them have a spot on this team. And think about Beatties 25. Acuña's going to do 23 this year. Mauricio's 24, 25. I mean, it's kind of like
you don't think he has a spot?
Who, Mauricio?
Yeah, Mauricio when he's healthy. Just a DH, plug and play at DH, see how he is.
How many 24-year-olds are DHs? I mean, here's my thing. God.
Just as he's like getting his feet wet, coming off an ACL, it's a lot to ask him to play the field every day too. You got to make sure the bat's there first.
Well, what if they go out and actually acquire a real DH bat? I mean, they've been looking at it. So let's be honest. One thing that has happened is now that free agency is kind of winding down, I think we're going to start to see this trade market get active, and the Mets might pull off a trade for a desert. That's what David Stearns did in Milwaukee. That's what he was known for, because he's working on a limited budget. And again, and even you brought this up during the last live, none of these prospects are David Stearns prospects outside of Carson Page, who I'm not trading. Yeah. There's no way I'm trading him. The kid looks like a stud. But good.
No, go. I wanted to bring up something after that about Stearns.
No, what I'm saying is because they're not his prospects, I don't even think in Milwaukee, he was not known to be a prospect hugger. I mean, they traded for a guy like Adames. They got a guy like Christian Yelich. For the premier guys, they're willing to give it up. So I'm wondering if the Mets would say, or maybe they trade for one of these guys now, and I'm not too sure about it. Maybe you'll know. I know if you trade for a player in season, they lose that qualifying offer ability. What if you trade for them prior to the season? I think that's still attached to them, correct?
I think it would be,
You have that to work with, and I think that Cease is kind of like a David Stearns type guy. He's all right, you're that mid 3.5 guy. I'll trade a little less to get you, and I'll bring you in here and turn you into a 2 ERA guy.
Yeah. Stearns is interesting, man. Like, he worked on a limited payroll in Milwaukee, but he was still able to extend to Freddie Peralta for 5 years. And I know that's a thing that comes up for Mets because you look at Alvarez, you look at Vientos. I'd like to extend them someday under team control, give them that 9 for 100 like Acuna got or something like that. I know they're not the star that Acuna is, but you're getting close to that point where you're going to have to extend those guys. So he did that with Freddie Peralta when he was in Milwaukee. You touched on Adames as well. Another great trade from him. He also traded for great trade. Traded for Hunter Renfroe too. Got rid of the Jackie Bradley Jr. contract.
Traded
signed Lorenzo Cain.
Hader.
Well, Hader. Right? And 2018 they traded for Yelich. They also got Lorenzo Cain. He was big for that team as well. So Stearns knows when to pull the trigger. Mike Moustakas before the trade deadline, I believe, in 2018 as well. He knows when to do that. We saw it last year with the Mets. Iglesias knowing when. I guess the McNeil injury, there would be no Iglesias. I get that too. But he knew when to hold them and when to fold them and when to kind of play these guys too. Though
just do that.
I'm not gonna say walk away though, because I guess we're saying at this point we're walking away from Iglesias. The Heyman report today kind of showing that they're not as interested as we thought, which is a little concerning. I still don't think this infield, where I started to go off on a tangent about Iglesias.
No, you're good.
But like Iglesias is the glue that this infield doesn't have. There's no assurance across the board.
How about that report, Dan?
Well, tell me.
We'll dive off in that and come right back to this. Supposedly the Mets haven't had any contact with Iglesias, but I told you on the phone. So you're telling me he's a guy who hits 330 and no other MLB team is trying to sign him? Come on.
It's crazy. No, it's crazy. It really is. I just don't think I just don't think this infield is assured enough. It's not. Vientos at third even is great, but who's playing first? Who's playing second for the long term? These are problems, you know.
Robert Nolan, Mauricio is Dan's man.
I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, don't talk about Mauricio, man. Like he's gonna be good.
So we got a couple more comments, and we'll move on to our next segment. I told you guys to send us some of your trades. We got some of them over here. We got this. Cease, King, Tucker, and Vladdy, all free agents. If you wait a year, you could sign them without giving up prospects. Explosive. You know what my issue is, and I brought it up on this channel a ton. It's always about the next year with the Mets. We heard about it when Bryce Harper was becoming a free agent. We heard about it. I'll go all the way back. Matt Holliday when he was a free agent. JT Realmuto when he was a free agent. Cohen owned the team at that time. We didn't want the JT Realmutos. We settled for the James McCanns. You know, there's always guys that are going to be free agents the following year that you could be waiting for. But sometimes you got to try to win it now. You got within a couple of games last year. Why not go for it now? You can go for it every year because you give up the prospects with the intentions of potentially retaining these guys at the end of the season. You get them in. You see in what their arm condition is, what you think they could do. Could you develop them in the pitching lab? Maybe that changes the whole outlook on things, but I'm so tired of that same narrative. And it's not directed at you, Explosive. It's just at fans in general. It's always wait for the next year. We waited. We got Juan Soto. So now you're going to bring Juan Soto in, pay him $50+ million this year and say, by the way, we're really not going to go for it. We're just going to wait another year. And then next year, if you miss out on Vladdy, what if Vladdy signs with Toronto next week? I saw a report earlier today. Again, they're working towards signing a contract extension. They're signing all these players. They signed Max Scherzer today, which we'll get into in a few minutes. But what if Vladdy signs? What if all of a sudden you see Cease goes to the Cubs and signs an extension there? And then King signs an extension with San Diego because we know San Diego has money to spend. Even though they're shedding it right now, they've spent in the past. There's no guarantee. And then all of a sudden next year comes. This happened this year. Remember, Corbin Burns was a lock to be a New York Met. I heard that all offseason last year. Don't trade for him now. Let the Orioles grab him. We'll grab him in the offseason. How did that work, Dan?
He's in Arizona.
Never guaranteed. It's never a guarantee. What if they don't want to come here right now, but then you get them in the uniform and then they want to stay?
It's the risk you run, isn't it? These guys are not guaranteed to extend.
It's always about the next year.
Right. You got to think about it.
Was a lock to be a New York Yankee coming into this offseason. I heard that all year last year in October. Wait till we add Bregman to this team. Wait till remember the Yankees. Why trade for Juan Soto? Well, even though he's a free agent, they made it to the World Series.
Right.
That's huge.
That stings even worse. That's why you're never guaranteed. The Mets could go to the World Series with Vlad, trade for him, and then he's gone in free agency. So if I'm the Mets, you're sitting on this pile of cash. Wait till free agency. That's when you'll be able to get your guys, the Tuckers of the world, the Vlads of the world. Don't trade for them. Don't give up prospect talent. It's not smart.
So you would not trade for them right now?
I would not trade for really anyone, Ray. If you want the brutal truth, like we could talk about these trades. I'd entertain, of course, Cease King, but
Now I gotta put a poll out.
I'm with David Stearns on this. Like he wants to see the prospects, and I think we have to see the prospects. We have to see how they play. Like, I don't know how else to say it, and that's the unpopular opinion. He gets booed at Amazing Day for saying it, but you can't trade these guys with unknown value. People floating Mauricio in trades, he's coming off an ACL. How are you
I'm
ever
going to put out a poll right now?
Like, it's just not smart. I don't think it's crazy to say.
A top prospect for Cease King. I want to know who people agree with, me or you. Very interesting.
Yeah. Like, do you think we need,
prospects or suspects? I mean, I'll never forget Lasting's Millage was guys, if you want to be involved in this poll, it's only going to be on YouTube. So if you want to head over there, I would love to see what you guys say in regard to that. I'm giving it up.
It depends who, Ray.
I'm not saying everybody, Dan, but if you're telling me it costs you a Rodriguez,
that's fine.
For Rodriguez and another lower end prospect for him,
I just don't think it will. Maybe for Cease, but even the higher price tag, they could justify asking for more. But King's the better pitcher. Like, you should be justified in asking, both ways.
I think we're both in agreement on that.
That's fair. I would want King.
We'll get to some more of these comments. This is from Hebrew. First of all, I'm not giving up anything for Cease. I want King. I think a lot of people are in your court, bro, to be honest with you. I mean, I would give up for Cease. Cease at worst is a solid number 2, in my opinion. If Cease gets to free agency, he'll probably end up with the Dodgers. Yeah, I agree, Carl.
I want to ask the chat this. Sure. Would you do Acuna for Michael King straight up?
I'll drive Acuna to JFK.
I knew you would say that. I know a lot of people.
Maybe that'll be our next poll. I will run that last poll, and we'll get the results. I'll run it until 10:20. Give it another 11 minutes. So if you haven't voted in the poll yet, please let me know in the poll. It's going to be interesting because here's the thing. I feel like not a Stockholm syndrome thing, but like so many people love their prospects so much they're not willing to give them up for anything. And remember, 80% of prospects turn out to be nothing. I mean, think about this. We've had a lot of high-end prospects, right? I mean, Ahmed Rosario was widely known as the number 2 overall prospect in all of baseball behind Gleyber Torres. What's he on? His 15? Remember, nobody wanted to go. Andres Jimenez, oh my gosh. He stinks.
Yeah.
But it just is what it is.
It's not fun.
We got this from Goomba. Goomba, appreciate you checking in, my guy. Let's go. We need an ace. I agree. Oh, here we go. This one's for Danny Boy. It's from Scott. Acuna, Tidwell, Rodriguez. I'm not giving up Tidwell. I don't think it will take Tidwell. What do you think, Dan?
I would probably weigh on the side of doing that, yeah. For Michael King, yeah. Cease, both of them.
Tidwell and Rodriguez?
Only for Michael King am I dealing Acuna, though. That's not for Cease. I wouldn't do that for Cease.
Rodriguez for Cease.
Just them, that wouldn't be enough. But yeah, if you threw in Beatty and McNeil's contract too, it's going to be a lot, guys. That's what I'm saying. It's not going to be just Budo and Gilbert for,
You got this from Rosa. What about quantity? Hamill, Tidwell, Parada, Ramirez. You know what's so funny, Dan? All Mets. And I used to be in this camp too. Every Met fan just wants to say, Beatty and Parada, who else? Because let's bring up the 2 guys who have stunk for us and throw them on someone else.
Yeah, take our loose change. And, no one's going to take our garbage that we don't want. Teams know what the Mets are trying to trade.
I agree with Hebrew here. Check this out, Dan. This is a rare opportunity where an organization is going through financial difficulties and you can fleece them, pay down Marte and give them Beatty and maybe a lower level prospect and you could get King. I semi agree with that because I think it's well known San Diego's going through it right now. Think about it, they're giving up guys who could be aces on half the teams in the league.
Right. I just don't know if Marte is going to be enough with Beatty. You would
Yeah,
have to have
I don't think the
McNeil.
Marte thing. That's why I said I partially agree with it.
They want league-ready guys, and you look at the Cubs' top 10 prospects, 9 out of the 10 of them are league-ready. So,
Oh, really? Yeah, you know that better than I do. I know our prospects. We got this from Robert Nolan. If the cost isn't prohibitive, Cease/King make the 6-man rotation pretty freaking good. Oh, Cease and King, maybe? I don't know. I don't think they're going to do that. Listen,
both.
if you're there's very little I would give Brandon Sproat up for. But if you're giving me both those guys, you have 2 qualifying offers at the end of the year. I mean, that would back to Fantasyland. I'm going to make my graphics guy is going to make one of those buttons for me that I could just play it. But
that's a tough conversation. I'd probably do it too, though. If King and Cease were in it and Sproat, yeah, I'd probably do it.
King, Cease, Manaea, Senga, Peterson as your number 5. Yep.
Clay Holmes as your 6th starter. Or Frankie Monty.
I keep forgetting about Clay Holmes. Screw him. Put him in the bullpen. Clay, you're going back to the bullpen. We're going to have a dominant pen, too. It's funny how, like, a lot of Met fans love to get on David Stearns, and I get on him sometimes, but I'm a very much staunch defender of him, and especially Cohen. But so, like, a 1 or 2 moves, all of a sudden fans are like, Sleepy Stearns, David Stearns, low, Dollar Dave Club, whatever. But it's like, all of a sudden, bam, he makes a trade and pulls off a Dylan Cease, brings back Alonso, and all of a sudden everybody's jubilated all over again.
I know. The Alonso thing, that's a whole conversation I don't want to have, but we could have it anyway if you want, Ray.
Yeah, we'll get to one last from Goomba, and then we'll get back to our next segment. We need an ace now. Wait for Vlad next year. We need to give up the farm now. It wouldn't cost you the farm. That's what's so crazy about this, Dan. Listen to this. If it's last year's trade deadline, you're giving up 2 top 5 prospects for Cease or King. But because they're in financial ruins, I mean, but remember this. They're going to be available to everybody. But I think what the Dodgers are doing out in LA is scaring a lot of teams away from giving away their prospects. I think, and this is something I spoke to one of the reporters we had on off the air a couple weeks ago. I said, are teams shying off because what LA is doing? And he said, yeah. A lot of teams are trying to wait for the next CBA in just a couple years where they're going to hammer the hell out of the Dodgers for doing all this discretionary spending, all this, everything pushed out down the line where they're going to be paying penalties, and they're hoping things come back to normal. So that's why I'm thinking a lot of these clubs aren't necessarily paying these guys or not willing to trade these prospects for the 1-year guy right now because they're like, the National League is the Dodgers, or at least the Western teams. If you're the Giants, why would you do that? If you're the Rockies, why would you do that? If you're the Cardinals, who's clearly trying to sell off, why would you do that? I think a lot of these teams are waiting 2 years, so that's why you're going to see those prospects that are 22 and under, they're going to be held on to. That's just my opinion. Maybe you think different.
No, I'm right with you. I'm right with you on the Padres, and They should get rid of one of these pitchers while they can have value back. Definitely. It's the same thing on a lesser extent. You're seeing the stuff with Torkelson because his stock is so low versus King's that's so high. And if you're Detroit, you're looking at Torkelson and saying, this might be the last chance I'll ever get to get any value back. Any chance in the world.
Supposedly the Mets were floating around that idea.
I'm all for that. I know Mountcastle's definitely an option too. He's the better player, but if you can get really
would Orioles give him up?
I don't know. It's just floated. I think the Mets checked in just to see because they need options for Pete. They're the whole thing with Canna today. They gave him a non-guaranteed contract.
He didn't accept that, right?
No, not yet.
What do you think about that whole situation? He's 30, going into his age 36 season, I believe February 15th, if I'm remembering correctly, is his birthday, I believe.
Mm-hmm. He was the first base option in 2023, and then I think they saw the writing on the wall, the backup first base option in 2023. And then they cut bait with him. I think they saw the writing on the wall with Vientos. They thought that they could put him at first, and that still could be the case. But we even saw the video this week that he posted. I mean, he wants to play third base, clearly. So I want to keep Vientos at third. if Pete doesn't come back, yeah, you're going to look at entertaining options like Canna in spring training, see if he can make it. Joey Meneses will be an option. You have Winker, you can give him a first baseman's mitt, give Beatty a first baseman's mitt, give Vientos again, and even Mauricio. It's an interesting one. I'd plug and play him at first base too if I could, coming off an injury.
The more I think about it, Dan, I don't want Vientos getting a first base club, and I'll tell you why.
Really?
Because I think down the line, no matter what, he's not the future first baseman. And he's already at best an average third baseman right now, if we're being honest, guys. That's one. Look, it's not a shot at Vientos. He's still young. He's going into his age 25 season. Even David Wright took a little bit to develop over there. But I want him developing where he's going to play. I don't want him playing first this year. You go sign Vladdy or you extend Pete, which one of those two things are most likely going to happen. Now you're going to shuffle him back there. Or how about this? Pete Alonso doesn't sign for another month. And the whole spring training or half of spring training, he's learning to take balls. We see it, Dan. We're down there for spring training. They're in the backfields practicing at first base, at first base, at first base. I want him taking his reps at third base where he's going to play. I don't want him. Also, he had a breakout season last year, Vientos. I want that to continue. I don't want him thinking defense, learning new footwork where now he's not working on his hitting because he's so focused on his defense. And I think that's a big reason why Alvarez took a step back this last year, because his rookie year, he came up and he absolutely mashed. But what happened? Everybody complained. His frame rate was down. He wasn't blocking balls correctly. He was throwing balls into center field. So what did he do all offseason? It was defense, defense, defense. And we watched his hitting ability come all the way down. Now, he's a catcher, so obviously I'm okay with that, but I don't want the same thing to happen to Mark Vientos. Leave him at third base where he belongs. Give Beatty a first base glove. I don't care. Give Mauricio first base glove. I don't care. But Vientos proved enough to me. He deserves an extremely long look right now at third base. And Bregman's not coming through that door. So nobody's coming in that's going to be a crazy gold glove third baseman. Leave him there.
Yeah, and about Alvarez too, and then I'll circle back to Beatty and Vientos. It was nice to see his power kind of come back at the end of the year with that thumb issue. It was more about gripping the bat, which is certainly a really big detriment when you're swinging. So it's good to see him kind of recovering from that. It's going to be great going into next year. Expect a big year from him. Beatty at first is very interesting. I don't think they trust him offensively. If they did, they'd give him free reign. But the fact that you're hearing right-handed first baseman being floated, Torkelson, Mountcastle, it leads me to believe that, again, you can play first base. Most people can get out there and learn the footwork in a couple of weeks. It's really about the hitting. They're going to bring in a guy like Torkelson, Mountcastle, get him in here that they can play the position defensively. If they hit, great. If they don't, if Brett Beatty's hitting, then it's a platoon. If one of them wins out, awesome. But if not, then you go all in on Vlad. Very simple.
Let's need to be careful with Brett Beatty, because if he doesn't hit at the start of this year, he's going to lose all his
yeah. No, Brett Beatty's he's walking some thin ice, definitely, and I hope he gets out.
For everyone in the chat, there are so many comments coming in right now. Over 1,500 people in here. I'm blown away. You guys are up late. I got work late tomorrow, so I'm chilling. I think Dan's chilling, but I'm going to put a prioritization on the comments on YouTube, because we have Facebook coming in, X coming in over here, YouTube, and it's taking me too long to filter anything else. So if you want to get your comments read, go over to YouTube, and that's where we're going to prioritize. I'm going to get to this quick video about Mark Vientos. Really interesting hearing the guys at MLB Network break him down, and then we're going to read the results of the poll that Dan's clearly going to lose. And no, I can't see the poll. I promise I'm sitting here right now, but I know you guys know I'm the smartest one. I'm just messing with you. All right, let's get to this video really quick.
Take a look at Mark Vientos and what really he meant to the Mets last year, but what he means to baseball. This guy can flat out rake. And what I love about him is when you watch Vientos, he's got slug all around the place to all fields. He can pull the ball down the line, left center. He can go dead center. I love that right there. Pitches middle in. He can still shoot you to right with power. And this one right here gets the ball down and away with an absolute rocket to right field. And I think when you watch his play and his body of work, what makes him elite is the slug to all fields, but this pitch right here. He is one of the best in baseball at that fastball up in the zone. When you could cover this as a hitter, man, I tell you what, when you can cover up and then work your way down, you become a major problem for the pitchers in this league. That right there, that's real power. Dead center out there in Washington, and he can get on top of anything. I think that's what when you
That
break
was
down
99.
Vientos, this right here is a separator for him. And I think that's why he's going to have a really good career, a long career. Look at the names right here. When you talk about 2024 slug leaders versus fastballs, 2.75 or plus feet up in the zone. You got Judge, Juan Soto, Jock Peters, who had an incredible year, and Mark Vientos. So you're talking about a guy that's starting to figure it out, that's starting to really be a great young player in the game. I'm really I love that he's right here, set at 81. And when you take
I
a
will
look,
say this, Dan. For me, if there's any miss to be had this offseason, it was Jock Peterson, man. Him and Alonso in this current lineup would wreak havoc. And I was screaming for him, bro.
So you still don't like the Winker signing?
Well, you tell me, would you rather Winker or Jock Peterson up there and throughout the year?
Yeah. Would I rather a Lamborghini or a Honda? I mean, I get what you're saying.
At least you admit it.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
All right, we're gonna start over with these comments because there's just so many of them from all the platforms. I'm gonna start fresh right now. So if you want to get your comment in, I'm gonna let it run for a second. So turns out MLB Network, let me pull it up really quick. Here we go. MLB Network had their top 100 list of players actually come out. And let's take a peek at it right here. You have our boy Mark Vientos coming in right there, number 81. I don't know why they have him at third/first base.
Nimmo at 91 too.
Yep. Well, stole my thunder, Dan. I think it's right here. Here we go. Brandon Nimmo at 91.
Let's go, Nims. Let's go.
Honestly, though, Dan, let's be real. If Nimmo's healthy, he's probably way closer to 50 than 90, in my opinion. Because when he's on and he's taking pitches, like think about this. And I listened to Brandon Nimmo's amazing interview. I don't know if you did, Dan, but if I'm the Mets, I want to say, Brandon, go back. I'm not saying completely, but try to go back to the guy that we signed. We want you on base. I think a perfect lineup in all reality. Nimmo's in the 2-hole. Extend this lineup. Lindor, Nimmo, Soto, Vientos, Alonso, then the DH. Because if Nimmo's going to have a little bit of pop, but it's all about getting on base in front of Soto, Vientos, Alonso. So tell him, you know what, maybe don't try to swing for the fence as much as you can. It's nice that you hit 24 home runs or 23 home runs, but at the expense of what? Your batting average going from 275 to 285 down to 250, 260, and your strikeout rate's up. Your on-base percentage used to be around 380 to 390, and now it's going to drop to about 350, 360. Me personally, I'd rather have the higher on base. He takes pitches, which will also allow Lindor to steal, and now you have two guys that consistently get on base between Nimmo and Lindor in front of the Soto, Vientos, Alonso, three guys that can hit a home run and a 3-run home run at any chance. What do you think about that?
I like that lineup. I do. I like Nimmo in the 5-hole. I still think he can get up there if he's hitting well in the 2-hole again. Again, that really feels far-fetched, I know. And are we moving Lindor out of the leadoff spot? I don't think they will, but maybe. I don't want to rule anything out. I really don't. I like Acuna in the leadoff spot. Like, there's ideas that we definitely can entertain, but I think I like where they are at. I like where Nimmo in the 5-hole. I think he's going to have a great year. Hitting 278 in that first half of last season, had 16 home runs. He could have a 30 home run season, Ray, in the 5-hole.
Yeah, I know. I feel like for him to be, I also think this too. If Nimmo has the right protection like Soto behind him, he's going to see some really good pitches. And Nimmo should, in all reality, in my opinion, he should be one of those prototypical gap-to-gap guys. I don't want him swinging for the fence. I know he can. No one could doubt that he could hit home runs. I don't think that's it at all. But if you have a chance to extend the lineup where Pete's now your 5-hitter, or even if maybe you want to take the pressure off Vientos, make him Pete's protection. You know what I mean? Right. You have that ability to do that. I only say Vientos behind Soto because Soto takes a ton of pitches. And I think personally, maybe you guys think different. Coming into this season, I think teams are going to fear Vientos more than they fear Pete Alonso right now. But I could be wrong. Let's see. All right, so here we go. We're going to end this poll right now. A lot of votes. So let's remind everybody of the question. Would you give up a top prospect for Dylan Cease or Michael King? 73% out of 90 votes say yes.
Wow.
Only 27% of Met fans have said no.
Wow. I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed of my fellow Mets fans. No, I get it. You need an ace, right?
How long are we going to wait around, Dan? How long are we supposed to wait around? It's always about the next year. When is it about this year? Think about it. Sean Manaea is 33 years old, 34.
Yeah, I get it, Ray. I do.
You wait another year. No, there's no guarantees.
Trade deadline.
Senga's coming off an injury season. You get a healthy year this year. There's no guarantee going forward. Another guy in his 30s. That's the issue for me. It would be different if we had the Matt Harveys, the Groms, the Steven Matz, all these guys coming up in their 20s. We just don't have that.
DeGrom. Trade deadline.
No. All right. You're fired.
Oh, man.
Robert says, Nimmo was great until he developed the foot issues. DH him more next season. Get him off his. I think that's I think that's why they brought Winker back. I really do. I think that's why they also offered Teoscar Hernandez that 2-year contract, a guy who could DH a lot, but also play in the field.
That's fair.
Let's see what we got here. Goomba, exactly right. Mets can't because Vientos around. Move Vientos around and ruin him. He's too important. I agree. People forget that. Defense does affect offense. A lot of baseball, I think you'll agree, Dan, a lot of baseball is all about confidence. Hitting could be contagious, but it's about confidence.
A lot of life is about confidence too, right?
Yes, true that. Let's see. We have, I wanted to get to this. Well, I'm going to put a poll up really quick, another poll. I love doing these polls. I love it. It's another way to engage with our people here, only on YouTube, of course, because that's the only way. Would you bring back
Jacob DeGrom,
the man I saw today?
Noah Syndergaard. Oh, you're going to say Syndergaard? Let's go. Let's have that conversation. Let's go. Let's have that conversation.
So let me write out Syndergaard. It's too long. Make sure you get your votes in. It's going to be a 5-minute poll. But I want to show you guys something that I saw today. And I had to tweet out.
That's
my wife would say, damn, that guy looks good. I'm like, yes, honey, he does. I get demonetized for showing this. There he is.
The return. Let's go. The return of Thor.
If he would have taken a spring training invite, how could you not be all over that, Dan?
Yep.
What if he's throwing hard, but he doesn't have control, and you say, you know what, we're going to throw you in the pen?
Put him in the pen, yep.
Maybe even if he's only throwing 94, 93, 94. Who knows what the pitching lab could do for him? Maybe he'll develop a sinker. I know it's something that he explored in the past. He got away from. He started the 4-seamer to try to drive up his strikeouts, but now he's not throwing as hard anymore. Maybe, just maybe, that could be that could be the move.
It's just a spring training invite, too. It's really not the end of the world. They don't count towards your 40-man roster. It's just a shot. I'd give Bartolo Colon a free agent in a spring training invite, too, if I could.
Come on, man.
Like, there's options, right? But Syndergaard's
Colon walks in, he's eating a cheeseburger, he's still throwing 90 miles. Maybe we'll have him DH. He was starting to hit towards the end of his career. Joseph agrees with me. Bring back Thor.
He's only 32. That's the thing. 32.
What is it, 2 years younger than Sean Manaea?
He was 23 when he pitched in the wild card in 16.
That's wild. I saw somebody said something. Okay. So here is somebody I got to.
But I do think that
I take
Boomer. Yeah.
It's going to be crappy because I can't show their sponsor because YouTube will give me that fat strike they love to give out.
Helix Wireless. Yeah.
Yeah. So here we go. Boomer Esiason talking. This was yesterday morning on the Pete situation.
You need to resign Pete Alonso. I do. I wasn't.
Well, they're trying.
I understand that, and I think everybody has come off of this 6 and 7 year nonsense deal because of what happened last year and because of his age. But I just feel like they have to get it over the finish line. I think the Mets have to really, really think hard and long about the impact that he would have on this team with Juan Soto in the lineup. I just think that now you're really fortifying you have every aspect covered. You got home run hitting covered, you got average coverage, you got defense covered, you got it all covered. If you keep him and you keep him in that lineup, it would be unbelievable. But
Thoughts?
I love it. Boomer sent out a tweet too before saying how he feels that it could happen as early as tomorrow that Pete Alonso becomes a Met.
Somebody beat you to it, and I think I started. If I didn't, forgive me. I read it. I meant to start. Sometimes, guys, I'm still new a little bit with this live stuff. The comments like right, and I'm trying to catch them as they're flying on by. That's why I'm saying I'm only looking at YouTube comments because it takes away Facebook and X. It's just so much easier. But what were you saying about the whole thing with the Boomer Esiason? Oh, here we go.
Yeah,
this is an X comment I saw from Rosa. Boomer Esiason said he has a feeling Pete will sign tomorrow with the Mets. If he does, I'll be doing an afternoon live because I'm only working during the morning. I'll tell my wife she's got to understand, Dan.
I'll make time. Don't worry.
Of course.
It could happen. It could happen.
Wait.
Especially if a week ago we were hearing that it could happen as soon as today. Break out the
soundboard, Dan, for the fantasy land.
Yeah.
We have this from explosive. Alvarez took a step back and it killed us in the playoffs with his bat. Alvarez started hitting in the playoffs, but it was too late. Yeah.
Yep.
That was that
game.
That's the whole sophomore slump that everybody's worried Vientos might go into. I think that was clear as day. Alvarez had the sophomore slump.
Yeah, but he was hurt. He was hurt too, though.
Say it again?
He was hurt too, though.
Yes, clearly. Richard clearly doesn't want Pete back. Pete's overrated. All right, Rich. Question. Can we have Acuna or Jet play second base?
Both.
Yeah, I think unless McNeil is moved, which I still think there is a chance, I think it's very far-fetched that either one of them even makes the opening day roster. Because I know a lot of people are saying, well, Acuna deserves it. They're not going to have Acuna here getting 1 start a week or 2 starts a week. It's just not happening.
Might be Jared Young.
Oh, that's your guy, right?
I
love Acuna. That's a tough one, Dan. That's in regard to the trade that we were talking about earlier.
I was going to tweet it out, but I didn't want to face backlash from everyone saying, how dare you trade Acuna?
Oh, I've been hearing it all off season. Guys, at the end of the day, ready? We're going to.
Like Vientos, same thing. Anytime you bring up the name Vientos, how dare you do that? Like, I get it. It's not the same thing, but it's the player that the fans really want. It's tough.
All right, so here we go. We're going to pull up. They didn't give me the MILB stats. They usually do. They took them away from Baseball Reference from Acuna. I wanted to.
He was killing it in the winter league.
But I will say this. He had an awful bat in the minor leagues.
Look up his winter league numbers and look up his major league numbers too.
Well, his major league numbers are pretty good. I think he hit 309 last year over a 900 OPS, but that's great in a small stint. But that's what it is. Baseball is the long game. We got this from Barry. Barry can't trade Sproat. Vientos is a rising star. I could not agree more with you.
Yep, definitely.
So if you had to give up a package, Dan, I'm still waiting. I need that package for one of these pitchers.
Again, like Tidwell would be in the conversation, probably paying down half of McNeil's contract. Beatty would be in one of these deals. Marte could be in these deals. Those are the big league guys. Even minor league guys like Santucci could be a name thrown in the back end of one of these trades. Colin Houck, Kevin Parada. The prospects I would keep, if you really want to know, count them on a hand. Brandon Sproat, Acuna, Mauricio, Gilbert, I'm trading Williams all day if I could. And
Why
then
is
probably
everybody hate on Williams?
Jonah
Just 'cause of the
Jonah Tong,
size?
I'm keeping forever. I
mean,
just
MLB's got him as our top ranked prospect. He's what, 42 right now?
but he's also 5'6".
I get it. What are they? I guess they think that the Marvin,
Not
shout
at-
out to you. I just seen this. Just subscribe today. Great channel. Love it. Marvin, thank you so
Marvin.
much.
Thank you,
Again,
brother.
if you guys are enjoying this content, the best way you could thank us, or not even thank us, just hang out with us more because we do these live. Just like and subscribe, turn on those notifications so you don't miss a live or a video that we upload. We like to have guests on this channel. We frequently do. I almost pulled off a last-second guest tonight. The last minute, they kind of are like, I got something else, but I'll come on next week. So you guys will have to wait till next week. It's a reporter that we had on before. I also have Pete Hoffman of WFAN is going to be joining us. I believe it's this Thursday night. I have him scheduled. As long as something doesn't change, he'll be coming on. Everybody knows him from the Enrico Bronio podcast with Evan Roberts, who I would love to get Evan on, but Evan's a really busy guy. He's got his kids, his wife, so I don't think he's going to be coming on any podcast anytime soon. But Hoffman's going to be coming on. Daniel McCartan's going to be coming on. We'll be recycling some of the writers that we've had come on in the past, the Will Salmons, the Mike Pumas, the Pat Ragazzos. So we're trying to keep it fresh for you guys, but also give you that insight. That's all we could do here. But we're a fan first channel by two fans. With the fans, I'll put it that way, not even for the fans. So that's why we like engaging with you guys.
Definitely.
Let's see. What's the plan for second base? Acuna or McNeil from Sierra? I think it's got to be McNeil until otherwise. Money does play a factor, regardless of how much he's making. It's going to, right?
Yeah, it is.
Jim Fraley, I still think they bring back Iglesias. Are you sold on that?
I'm more away from it than I was. I still think it's possible, though. I do.
It was Healy, Tim Healy, who told us that he doesn't think he's going to be back, right?
Right. If he gets a multi-year deal, Ray, he's good as gone. But if you can get a one-year deal, that's why Stanek, we could talk about that signing too later.
Oh, yeah, sure. We'll bring that up. Yep.
$4.5 million for Stanek. I thought he was going to get like a 2 for 15, maybe a 2 for 12, something like that.
How old
no,
is he? He's older, right? Was he
he's 34?
I think he's older.
34. Stanek is age 33.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we oversold him.
And he was a Marlin?
Great piece to have in this bullpen. Yeah, way back when.
Yeah, way back when, huh?
But
I didn't even know
I think
that.
it was 2019 he was a Marlin. But Stanek provides a sense of security for this bullpen. You have Reed Garrett in there. Dednell Nunez, we'll see how he's coming back with that flexor tendon, which most of the time is a precursor to Tommy John. You have to keep that in the back of your mind. But he's off the PRP injection, so hopefully he'll be good. But the Mets are probably going to be cautious with him. Budo's going to be in this pen. That's why when they float these trades out for Budo, it's like for good reason. He's going to have value because he's going to be a high leverage arm in this Mets pen, you would think. You have AJ Minter, who's going to be awesome. Absolutely love the Minter signing. Amazing day. He was yucking it up with the fans, making Yankee comments and stuff. Minter fits like a glove with Stanek right behind Diaz. There's your bridge to Edwin Diaz. Minter, depending on lefty-righty. Stanek, Diaz. It's money. It's perfect. This bullpen's great.
Nunez should have just gotten the Tommy John.
I mean, if he thinks that he's, not able to, I would not go down that route. But if it might become a thing where he flares it up so bad that they have no other choice.
Right.
And that's a scary game to play. So you also have Sean Reed-Foley. I don't want to count him out. Huascar Brazoban as well. He's in this bullpen mix, I guess, if you want to call it. And then the left-handed guys, Danny Young, Yenesis Cabrera, Anthony Gose. So
makes sense. I want to get to this poll really quick. It's been 11 minutes. I'm surprised, Dan. I'm going to end this poll. 60% of fans said no to bringing in Syndergaard. That's a little against the grain, if you ask me.
I understand the way he left. I understand in 2019 you started to hear the trade rumors, and then 2 years later after he rehabs with the Mets, he leaves. I understand. It was frustrating. But he's also talked about, even on the Terry Collins podcast, or anyone who listened to that, he wants to be a Met. He wants to be back. And he's only 32 years old. And I say this because of one thing, and it's delusional. But he was good friends with Jacob deGrom. And deGrom has to waive his no trade to come back to New York. And again, I'll bring it up. If Texas is bad, Ray, That's the first contract they want to get rid of.
What is he owed on it right now?
115 the Mets would have to pay, I think. Could be offering that, but 3 years remaining on the 185 for 5 that he got. So I think it's like 3 for 115. I could be wrong with those numbers, but I'm pretty sure.
He's got 3, and then he's got the club option. My God,
get him back.
He's making $40 million this year.
We'll have this conversation because the Rangers could win the American League too. It's like really hit or miss, but we'll be watching them. If they look like they're going to be out of it by the trade deadline, you bet your bottom dollar that Jacob deGrom and the Mets are going to be.
A lot of money. That's a lot of money. Look, he's an ace. Nobody could deny that. But when you're looking at guys like you have Dylan Cease out there and King making 8 and then 12
no, it's pennies.
And he's making 40. So we got this from ACJ. Will New York Mets or Alonso budge on contract? What do you think about that whole report that supposedly Evans said that Alonso flew from Tampa to New York the day after the Amazing event? Did you put anything into that?
A little bit. I do think the Heyman report, too, that said Pete desperately wants to be a Met. There's some truth to that. I don't know if it's exaggerated or not. I don't know. Desperately does sound, I don't know if it's desperate, but it's going to be very soon if he doesn't make a choice.
Right. Oh, you know what? We should, if you want, I missed out on one of our videos I wanted to put up.
Oh, yeah, of course.
This is MLB Network, on Brandon Nimmo and his rankings. I meant to put this out there. It's very quick. We'll take a quick peek at it.
At number 6, Brandon Nimmo of the New York Mets. Nimmo was in the top 10 for the 7th straight season. 2024 was his worst full season in the majors as he dealt with a foot injury. His on-base dropped to a career-worst 327, and his 109 weighted runs created plus was also the worst in a full season for him. But he still played in 151 games and has now played in 150-plus in 3 consecutive seasons. Kind of an Iron Man now. At number 6.
Got to cite the injuries there. I'm a little surprised they didn't cite the injuries when going over Brandon Nimmo, but, injuries are a part of the game. It is what it is, right?
Right. 6 is fine. He'll be in the top 5 before too long, though, I think.
See, the Horse Players Room said the Mets could have had Stroman. Too woke. My friend works for them. They didn't offer him a contract coming out the 5th best ERA. It's weird. It's a weird clubhouse. I'll tell you this. From people that I know in the organization, they could not wait for Marcus Stroman to get the hell out of town. And there's a reason why, even though he had an okay year for the Yankees, nobody's touching him. That's all I'll say. There's a reason why. No clubhouse wants to put that man in there. Just is what it is.
Right.
It's his own doing.
Yeah.
Steven, God, no more squirrel, please. I feel like a lot of Met fans feel that way. But again, another guy who's maybe not the best clubhouse guy, Dan. But, he's got to return to what he was, or that's just an awful contract.
I agree.
So, Goomba, is anyone else worried Sproat is 24 and is coming off a second Tommy John without ever hitting the major leagues yet? Because it worries me since he's our top pitching prospect.
I'm not worried. The only thing you should be worried about Sproat is that his fastball can kind of sit on a flat plane, and that can kind of cause some issues because if it just sits at the same level the whole time, it's easier to kind of time it up and sync it up. So that's the real issue. He's going to be a monster. He's going to get into this rotation as the 6th starter, work his way up. You got Christian Scott, the other Florida Gator, right behind him. Mm-hmm. This is going to be a good rotation in a year. That's why you want to go after Cease and stuff, but you don't want to trade the Tidwells of the world because he could be a starter too. I know he kind of fits more in the pen, but the case is not closed on Tidwell as a starter.
Right. I'm not trading my starting pitching prospects. I'm just not. You see every single trade around Major League Baseball. Where do you see starting pitchers getting traded? Because the price of pitching is just absolutely bonkers right now. No one's trading their starting pitchers. I mean, look at Garrett Crochet. You would have thought the top pitching prospects would be going back the other way, and we just didn't see that happen.
Look at Pablo Lopez in Minnesota. We were talking about him months ago, and no developments.
Yep.
Nothing. It's crazy.
But guys, that's what we had for you today. Again, if you guys like this content, we just ask you to like and subscribe. Shout out to the over 2,000 people that are here with us tonight. Other news comes in, we'll be breaking it, going live. Hopefully, Pete Alonso news. Maybe it breaks tomorrow.
Hopefully.
We'll do another live.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. Dan, you got any last words?
Thank you, everyone, for joining. As always, these lives are great. We'll see if anything breaks with the Mets. Pete, we're on Pete watch.
Yep. Take care, everybody. Until next time. See ya.
Woo.